Okay, let's talk about the anatomy when it comes to sciatica, piriformis syndrome, tingling, numbness, burning, down, pins and needles down your leg. Talk about the most common or most important aspects that you really should be aware of. So I'm going to show you the anatomy here on this fella. And I first want you to just get appreciation for the nervous system. So if I insert all the nerves, boom, there you go. You've got all the nerves in the body right there. Just look how much there is. The nervous system really is in charge of everything. It's in charge of your heart. It's in charge of your movement. It's in charge of all of your organs. It's in charge of breathing. It's in charge of your brain. But if you really take a look and see which nerve is the biggest in the body, it's the sciatic nerve. It's this guy right here. Sciatic nerve is by far the biggest and longest nerve in the body, supplies the most. So it comes out of the spine, L3, L4 up in here, comes out of the spine, and I'll dive into that a little bit more in detail in just a moment. But it comes out of the spine, and then as you can see, it goes down your leg. It splits off here right above the knee. So you've got one that splits down, goes down the back of the leg, and then you've got one that goes down the outside of your leg. So if you're complaining of symptoms, tingling, numbness, burning, pins and needles down the back of the leg, which is by far the most common, and it doesn't have to, it goes into the feet too, but it doesn't have to go all the way down. The symptoms don't have to go all the way down. It can be anywhere throughout here. Some people say, I only feel it in my big toe, I only feel it in my foot, I only feel it in my butt area, or I only feel it in the back of the leg or the calf. It doesn't mean that it's required to feel it everywhere to conclude that it is sciatica symptoms. Okay, so now let's put some muscles on this guy. And there's one that I want to highlight in particular, and it's him right here, the piriformis muscle. You may have heard piriformis syndrome. What that means is the piriformis muscle is irritating the sciatic nerve, causing sciatica. And if we really look here, I mean, you can see it. It almost seems like that muscle is in contact with the nerve. It lives that close to it. So if I were to take a nerve and take it out of and hold it in my hand, and if I was to just put a little bit of pressure on it, it could start causing some tingling, numbness, burning, pins and needles down the leg. So if a muscle becomes inflamed and irritated, and it starts putting a little bit of pressure on the nerve, it can cause those symptoms as well. And so, yes, sciatica can, in the far majority of the time, it is muscular. And sciatica muscles in the hip can start causing symptoms down the leg. So the piriformis muscle is the most common. Now, we have other areas that live next to the muscle or next to the nerve also. So the hamstrings right next to it. Then if we put more muscle on this guy, you've got the glute that lives right over it. So there's the point I want to make is the piriformis gets the blame, and rightfully so. I mean, it's right next to it, but there's a lot of other areas that come into close contact with this nerve that could be causing some sciatica symptoms. And I will tell you that the far majority, it's not even close, the far majority of the time, sciatica is actually coming from right in here. It could be the piriformis, it could be the glute, it could be the hamstring, but it's coming from somewhere right into the hip that's causing, the muscles in the hip are irritated and they're causing some symptoms down the leg. Now, let's go back to the spine because I want to highlight a lot of people that I see have been diagnosed with a herniated disc, bulging disc, slipped disc, and they've been told that's the cause of their sciatica symptoms. So let's take a look at that a little bit. If we go, let's highlight this vertebrae. So if we take a look at this, what happens is you've got a disc, and I'll show you that in a little bit better detail in just a second, but you've got a disc here and you've got a disc here. When they herniate, they typically push out the back. The disc will push out the back, and the nerve comes out right here. and I'll show you that. And so if you have a disc that pushes out the back and the nerve's coming out right here, it can come in contact with the nerve and cause symptoms down your leg. So if we go, let's see, how can I do this? I think right here. Let's isolate that. Okay, that's better. So you have the nerve, you can see it comes out right in the back. Let's zoom in here. Right in the back of that spine. And the disc, for some reason this thing won't show the disc, but the disc will be right here, and if it herniates, it's going to push, typically it's going to push out back, and by pushing out back can put pressure on this nerve and go down and cause sciatica. Now if you've been diagnosed with a herniated or bulging or a slipped disc and you have sciatica, I've got good news for you. Number one, I've seen a lot of people and helped a lot of people that have been told that and have sciatica, and it's actually coming from the hip, not the spine, even though they have a herniated disc. And I want to illustrate that to you a little bit more, because if we look at two different studies here, let's look at this one first. So this is lumbar spine, so low back. The thing I want to highlight here is healthy young adults aged 20 to 22 years old with no back pain. 48% had at least one degenerative disc, which we're not really highlighting in this video, but 25% had a bulging disc in their low back but had no pain. Bulging disc but no pain. So good news is, hey, you can have a bulging disc, but it's not always going to cause symptoms, and it rarely causes symptoms. And these are, young adults. They even have bulging discs. Another study, let's see, where is this one at? This one here. We look at this, low back here, over 3,000 people in this study. This is at the age of 50 years old. 36% of them had disc protrusion. So in the healthcare system, we classify a herniated disc or bulging disc. There's classifications to how severe it is, and a disc protrusion is the most severe classification of that. But yet none of these people had pain, even though they had the most severe classification. So that's what, roughly 1,000 people. I think it's going to be even more than 1,000, but somewhere over 1,000 people in their age 50 years old had a disc protrusion in the low back, but none of them had pain. So if you've been diagnosed with that, that's great news. Most of the time it's coming from the hip. It's not coming from the spine, even though you have a herniated disc. And these, they really are just a normal part of aging. Herniated and bulging, slip disc are completely normal, and usually they don't cause problems.